Hi everyone, I'm Shani-faye Chambers from the Wellness Chambers, and this is my YouTube channel, talking into all things health, wealth, wellness, happiness, spiritual evolution, personal development, relationships, you name it. I love it. I'll talk about it. So this particular video is on trauma responses. It links back into one that I just recorded on shame responses. So if you haven't had a look at that one, go have a look at that one too. So basically, a trauma response is a response or a reaction within the autonomic nervous system when there is some kind of perceived threat to life or safety. So most people have heard of the old fight or flight response. There's actually six different responses or reactions. We've got fight, which we know about, flight. Actually, I'll slow down a bit and I'll explain them because we've got both a healthy and an unhealthy way of these showing up. So, an unhealthy fight response is when we're just in it to win at all costs, and it could get very loud, it could be very violent, it could be quite malicious attack. Or the healthy fight response is actually us standing up for ourselves, speaking up, putting our point across. So some people can actually be really lacking a fight response, a healthy one. I know that that's one that I've had to work on is, well, depending on who it's with. Usually if it's with my partner, then I have one of the other responses of shutting down. I actually need to learn more of a healthier fight response, which is about speaking up, asserting boundaries, those kinds of things. Then we've got the flight response, which, is like checking out. It's running away. So in an unhealthy way, that's, when you're trying to talk to your partner and they're just checked out, they might come home from work straight on the gaming on their phone, not listening, laughing, joking. It's a way of getting out of the situation. Now, we need a healthy flight response because if we're in a very dangerous situation, we need to be able to get out of it. We need to be able to leave. So this is one of my big ones. I tend to have a bit of a flight response. So if me and my partner start to get a little bit upped up, I just want to run. So I am also more of an avoidant attachment style. He tends to be more of an anxious attachment style. So we've got to work around that I actually need to time out and have space. But that can really trigger him. So we've actually got a little bit of a rule around it that if I need to go take 5 minutes, that I let him know that I love him. I'm taking 5 minutes and I come straight back as soon as I've had a chance to take some breaths and regulate myself. So there is a healthy flight response and a very unhealthy flight response. An unhealthy flight response is when you just don't come back and deal with it, or you're gone for days, or you just ignore the problem, checking out. Then we got the freeze response, which is like the deer in headlights, where you're just stuck and you can't actually do anything, you can't say anything, you're like frozen. Now, a prolonged unhealthy freeze response is depression, is your nervous system can actually be stuck in a freeze response of like, I don't want to do anything or say anything because it could threaten my safety. So a healthy freeze response, I like to refer it to as like, when Jackie Chan kind of like comes into like a room full of like bad guys and he just stops and he looks around and he assesses everything. That's a healthy freeze response. It's like we're stopping, we're assessing what's going on. It's a little bit like when holding space for your partner, and they might be saying stuff that is quite triggering, but if you can just sit in that very healthy freeze, which is a sense of mindfulness, it's you're stopping and you're really taking everything in. It's that level of awareness and mindfulness, quite healthy. Whereas if we're stuck and we can't speak up and we can't talk and we can't move and we can't do anything, that's the unhealthy reaction within the autonomic nervous system. Then you got the fourth one. So that's a fight, flight, freeze. The fourth one that a lot of people don't know about is fawning. So I only learned about this a few years ago and I was like, oh, fuck, this is me all over. It's the people pleaser. Because if I am looking after everybody else, if I'm making sure everyone else is happy, then I might be safe. So a really unhealthy version of this happens a lot in DV relationships where, say, for example, someone, partner, man or woman, comes home and is quite angry and quite violent, then the other person in the relationship might fawn and be like, oh, it's okay, darling, here, let me take your jacket. I'm going to cook your favorite dinner. I'm going to do it here, have a beer. They're trying to people please because if I can make sure he's happy or she's happy, then I'll be safe. So people pleasing is actually a trauma response. It's fawning. It's also a sense of, trying to have control over the room because if everybody else is happy, then I might just be safe. So there is also a healthy version of that. Like I've got a four, no, she just turned 5. I've got a 5-year-old. So I've had a toddler recently. What do you do with toddlers? You fawn a lot. They might be kicking and screaming and having a meltdown, and you're like, it's okay, darling, I'm here, give mummy a hug. It's that really holding space for someone else and extending the olive leaf branch first. It's looking after somebody else before yourself. But if you don't circle back to state your side as well, then it's unhealthy. So quite often in relationships, like with me and my partner, one of us, if we've had like a little bit of a tiff, which we do, we're human, usually doesn't last long, but one of us needs to kind of fawn first and come back and be like, I'm sorry. The other person is usually like, I'm sorry too, but someone needs to be the first person to do that. So that can be a more healthier fawn system. Then you've also got flop, which can be fainting, it can be illness, it's just the body shuts down, like actually shuts down. And then you've got frenzy, which is crazy, like a maniac that you black out and you don't know what you've done. And that can be like superhuman strength and stuff like that. So those two are more rare. The first 4 are the main ones. So it's really you should probably watch this with your partner or share it with them because it's really important to understand what your trauma responses are or trauma reactions, because once this has happened, like me and my partner might be having like a conversation and I might just bring something up, and if he gets triggered and he goes into his more of a fight response, he doesn't get angry and yell and he doesn't do anything like that, but it's a defense of he feels like he's under attack, so he has to fight back. But it's usually like he'd make a great lawyer, like he really knows how to get his point across. He's very, very good at it. And as soon as he goes into that trauma response, I get triggered because I know that I can't win. It doesn't matter what I do or say. When he's in his fight response, he's a gun. He's really good, and I just go into freeze or into shutdown or into flight. And then there's no way that we can resolve the situation. So we know to call a timeout as soon as one of us, like either he'll say it or I'll say it or we'll recognize it in each other. I'll be like, I'm starting to shut down. Can we time out? Because the minute that happens, we can't resolve the issue. Because what happens when we do get triggered into an autonomic nervous system reaction of a trauma response, 75% of the brain shuts down. So we no longer have access to logic, to reasoning, to certain memory, to solution-based thinking, to empathy. We are just in it to survive. There's no space for creation of finding a solution. So the minute you and your partner or wherever the conflict is, it could be with your parents or your children, as soon as there is a trauma response that has been activated, you've got to call a timeout and you've got to come back to regulation, to just calm the nervous system, come back to love, because you cannot resolve it from that space. Well, you might be able to, but it's a lot harder to resolve it from that space. And I'll give you a really good example of how this has shown up for me and my partner one time. We hadn't been together long, I think probably only a few months, and he had some pretty big betrayal wounds from ex-partners. And anyway, I'm lying in bed and I'm, texting my family as he was falling asleep, and I was even telling him, oh, they say hello, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he's fallen asleep. I couldn't sleep, so I ended up being up that night reading on my phone, like reading books and stuff, trying to stay off social media because that wakes you up more. So I was reading a lot that night. Anyway, he's woken up in the morning to go to work, and he said to me, he's like, who were you texting last night? And I said, nobody. I said, I was reading. He goes, no, you're definitely texting someone. I'm like, I definitely was not. He goes, well, I saw you text a heart and all these emojis went across the screen. So who are you sending that to? And I'm like, no one. And I could see that he didn't believe me. And I'm like, the night before, he had actually woken me up. He must have been sleep talking. He's woken me up and gone, go back to sleep. And I'm like, hang on a minute, you've just woken me up. So I said to him, I said, you must be dreaming. You know how you dreamt last night that I was awake? You probably have just done that again. He's like, no, I know what I saw. And he's getting ready to go to work, and I'm starting to freak out because I don't want him going to work thinking that I've been sending some guy emojis or anything like that, you know. So I could see him starting to go, hang on a minute, something's not right. She's not being honest with me because I know what I saw. I'm sitting there going, nah, you're dreaming. Next thing I said, and I swear to black and blue, this was true. I said to him, I said, my phone doesn't even send emojis like that. And he goes, oh, well, fuck, now you're just gaslighting me. I'm like, no, my phone doesn't, I swear. In that moment, I swore that my phone didn't send emojis. Like, you know, when you send one and it just lights across the screen. He's like, bullshit. And I said, no, look, I'll get my phone, I'll show you. And so I sent him an emoji and it was just going across the screen. I'm like, so I'm sending him another one and I'm sending them to myself. And I'm like, I could not in that moment understand how my phone sent emojis. Long story short, like I'm going, look at my phone, please. I didn't, you know. And then he's like, open your family chat. So I opened the family chat. The last thing I'd sent was a love heart, and there goes all them. So we're like, oh, okay, we knew what it was about. And for the next couple of hours, I ended up speaking to my business partner, Emma Romano, who's freaking amazing with all this stuff. She taught me about trauma responses. And I'm like, I still don't understand how my phone sends emojis. Like, I just don't understand. Like, I swear it didn't. And now all of a sudden it does. She's like, Shani, you're in a trauma response still. I'd actually got into a fight response because I'm like, no, I've got to fight for the truth. She's like, you're still in a trauma response. That's why you can't understand it. You just need to go calm down and regulate, and then it will make sense. Anyway, a couple of hours later, I've sent her and Tim a message going, oh, for fuck's sake, I'm the one who set all the emojis in my family chat. You know how you can actually go, if you put a certain name in, then, you know, all these little emojis go across the screen. I did that. I set the chat, I set the emojis. But in that moment, I could have sworn on my life, on my daughter's life, on anyone's life that my phone didn't do that. What happened is 75% of my brain shut down in that moment, and I was solely focused on survival. So that was such an eye-opener for me. And I tell a lot of clients that story because, you know, if you're in a trauma response and you're trying to resolve shit, you will be making shit up that's not even true, and you will swear black and blue that it is true, like I did with the emojis. Like, it literally took me hours to be able to understand that my phone did that. Like, I couldn't get my head around it. That's what happens in a trauma response. So please, if you recognize that you or your partner are triggered, time out, come back to love, come back to, you know, some regulation, some breathing, take time out if you need to, because it's not you against the other person. And that's what happens in a trauma response. It's survival. And if you're in survival, that means the other person is the villain and you're the victim, you know? So you've got to get out of that headspace first. It goes all through the body, through the nervous system, through the mind, the conscious, the subconscious. You're no longer with a teammate trying to figure something out rationally. You're now with an opponent fighting for survival. So as soon as you recognize that happening, just come to some agreement with your partner about how you're going to deal with that. Have a timeout. Always circle back until it's resolved. Anyway, guys, I hope you like this video. Share it with someone who needs to know. Go check out the video on shame responses, because that's another eye-opener about what happens in the autonomic nervous system the minute there's a little bit of threat involved. Anyway, see you guys soon.